Liberal comedian Bill Maher continuing to give his fellow Democrats some hard truths as they slide further and further to the left. Marr is now comparing woke progressives to the Ku Klux Klan, given their constant fixation on race.
They believe race is first and foremost the thing you should always see everywhere, which I find interesting because that used to be the position of the Ku Klux Klan. Again, you can have that position, but don't say that's a liberal position. You're doing something very different.
Okay, Jessica, Marr says that he's always trying to make the case that liberal is a different animal than woke, which he feels takes things too far to the left fringe. Do you agree with him?
Well, he's drawing the distinction. Yes, I do. So there's obviously a far left side of the party, and then there's the bulk of the party, which falls into this establishment camp, which is your run-of-the-mill Democrat. But he's even going further back and talking about old school blue dog Democrats. So, you know, what was going on in the 90s during the Clinton era. And everyone has generally updated their social positions, for instance, on things like gay marriage, becoming more pro-choice, et cetera. But Bill Maher is, and I really enjoy him, I watch the show all the time, he's very disconnected from where the Democratic Party is today. There are core issues that make it so that he would never vote for the conservatives. Obviously, climate change is a huge issue for him. But he says regularly Donald Trump shouldn't even be allowed to run for office because of what happened on January 6th. So this isn't, I don't know, it's not the own that I think a lot of people think that it is when, you know, Bill Maher comes out and says something negative about liberals. He's not turning into some sort of conservative scion.
All right, Greg, 56% of Americans view the term woke as positive. Now, will that number go down over time as they go more and more to the left? Or do the Republicans have to adapt?
Well, I think that Jessica didn't realize she self-owned her own party because you said that you agree with the fact that there is a different element to the party that's woke, and then you say that he doesn't identify with the bulk of the party. I don't think you can have that both ways. I think he's pointing out the obvious, but it needed to come from a liberal because no one listens to us, right? This guy was a progressive when AOC was in diapers. So the point is, and he's correct, and he is very correct because you have to credit, you know, Democrats for being in the civil rights movement. And, you know, the idea of looking at everything through the prism of race is indeed racist, no matter what direction you come from. Because if you use race as a filter, that means you see people as groups and not individuals. And that means you can only say that one group is better than another because there's no such thing as equity, or else there would be 50% white guys in the NBA and 50% black guys playing hockey. That's not the case. And before anybody says, you know, pretending race isn't a factor in life is impossible, that was the goal. That was the whole damn goal. We built the system so we could reach that goal. It was called America. That was the melting pot. At some point, we'd move to a system where we didn't see skin color. But the woke's goal, which is equity, making things equitable, is also their system, right? And if it's your system, that means somebody gets punished. If you got if this group, if you only look at them as a group and not as an individual, and they do better than you, then you have to punish them. Whereas if you just looked at individuals, you'd never have to do that. That's why he's right. You're dealing with a racist component in your party, and it's as bad as the racist component, say, in the right. Maybe worse. Jessica.
Do you want to respond to that, Jesse?
Well, in a way, you're right electorally. The Democratic Party used to focus more on class and class divisions. And then they got wiped out a few times. Yeah. Barack comes around and focuses much more on racial division. And so did the academics and so did the media people, because you create an oppressor and then you create a victim. And that helps them with their interest groups when they're running nationally. But that's not really what connects this country. You have maybe a black middle-class guy from Georgia has a lot more in common with a white middle-class guy in Tennessee than some overly educated white Democrat from the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And that's what they don't want to talk about, because if you unite this country through class, middle-class people that all agree that, you know, you guys are crazy, let's just go back to what works, the Democrats are in deep trouble.
You know, Dana, the San Francisco Chronicle talked about the Oakland Elementary School District and saying segregation of children for play dates, excluding white kids, is a familiar strategy used by the Republicans. So what they had were black, Hispanic, non-white kids for play dates, and the white kids were excluded. And they said, well, this is what the Republicans do. Isn't that hypocritical?
I don't have children, so I don't know about the play dates. But when you read this, you think, well, it just echoes back to what Greg was saying, that, well, wait, didn't we build this whole system so that we wouldn't have to have that? Yep. And children don't see race. So this is more about the parents. So, and I read these things and I hear from some of the black parents in this case saying that we want our children to feel safe. And I'm thinking, but why do the children feel unsafe? Did something happen to them? And if so, you know, let's fix that. But I feel that we are taking several steps backward. What's interesting about Marr, Joe Rogan, et cetera, is we're living through this political realignment. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how it's going to turn out. It's very interesting to live through it. We're in the middle of it. But now you start to see people have access to different mediums. So they might be on TikTok or some other social media, or they might be listening to a podcast. They might be watching here. They might be watching that. And you can find somebody who makes you go, oh, that's what I think. And if you hear that, you're going to listen to it over and over again. That's why I think Joe Rogan's very popular. That's why your show is very popular in primetime and why America's Newsroom is crushing it, obviously. But I do worry about the fact that I think the parents are the ones driving it, because the children are not the ones who are seeing color. Remember, Obama said that. Right. And the most beautiful thing is my children don't see that. And if we teach them that, then in 20 years, what are we going to be facing?
Can I just say something super quick about Obama?
They're telling me we got to go.
I did hear that too, but he didn't inject race into it. He injected a black man into it, and race came back at him. People then said he was an American, that he was from Kenya. People still question those kinds of things.
Well, you also were accused of being racist for disliking Obamacare.
I don't.
All right, coming up, Burning Man chaos. Thousands of partiers and celebrities left stranded in a muddy mess.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.